इस वीडियो में बताई गई सारी जानकारी पब्लिक प्लेटफॉर्म पर उपलब्ध है। इसमें ऐसी कोई जानकारी नहीं दी गई है जिससे हमारे सुरक्षा बलों की गोपनीयता भंग होती है। डिफेंस डिटेक्टिव सेना का सम्मान करता है और उन्हीं जानकारियों के आधार पर काम करता है जो सार्वजनिक रूप से मौजूद हैं।
Hello and welcome to another episode of Defense Detective Global. We are beginning a series on Indo-China war. As it is impossible to cover the topic in one video, so we have divided the overall battle of 1962 into various battles of important fronts, so that it is easy for you to understand. It is important to know deeply about the 1962 India-China war to understand the conflict between the two countries. Whenever the Indo-China War of 1962 is mentioned, Indians feel aggravated till now, because on one side, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was raising the slogan of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, and on the other side, China attacked us treacherously, stabbing in our back. It still brings to our memory the biggest deception India got in the name of friendship. It brings to our memory how thousands of Indian soldiers lost their lives fighting without adequate weapons, and many areas of India were occupied by China. The defeat at the hands of China in the War of 1962 will always haunt Indians. But in this war, the brave hearts of the Indian Army showed such exemplary courage on many fronts that even China was surprised. In this series related to the 1962 war, we will tell you about these battles. Let's start with the battle at Chushul in Ladakh. What did the Indian Army do here that the Chinese army got the cold feet? No Indian can forget the date 20th October 1962. On this day, the Chinese army simultaneously attacked Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh, which was then called Northeast Frontier Agency. At that time, India was not ready for this attack in any way. The Indian government was confident that China would not attack and did not prepare for war or defense. Only a few units of army were deployed on the border. All of a sudden, firing started on the Indian Air Force aircraft An-12 flying over Chushul in Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir. Before the pilot of the aircraft, squadron leader Chandan Singh could understand anything, some bullets hit the aircraft. He knew that these bullets were being fired from a Chinese light machine gun. Avoiding the bullets, squadron leader Chandan Singh brought his plane safely to Chandigarh. This was the day when China started war against India without any warning or announcement. Former Air Chief Marshal of Indian Air Force P.C. Lal has mentioned this incident in his book My Years with the IAF. In this midnight attack, the Chinese army quickly crossed the Chipchap River Valley and reached the eastern area of Daulat Beg Oldi. Chinese army threatened to lay siege to Daulat Beg Oldi. Now it was more difficult for India. Elihud George, a resident of Ladakh, is a former Indian soldier. At that time, he was a Naik in 14 JNK militia and was posted on the China border in Ladakh. George said that there were only 3 soldiers at his post and they just had 303 rifles in the name of weapons. There were 2 more posts ahead of them. Including all the 3 posts, there were a total of 10 soldiers.
चुशुल साइड में वहाँ पर 7 मलेशिया था।
हाँ।
वहाँ पर लड़ाई ज़्यादा हुआ।
तो मतलब चाइनीज वहाँ आए।
वहाँ पर ज़्यादा अटैक हुआ, वहाँ पर खूब लड़ाई हुआ, कैजुअल्टी भी काफ़ी हुआ। हमारे वहाँ तो main power बहुत कम थे।
George was Naik in the 14th JNK militia, which is now known as Ladakh Scouts. After the Battle of 1962, Ladakh Scouts was raised by merging the 7th and 14th battalions of JNK militia. Ladakh Scouts also did a tremendous job in the Kargil war. Although their parent regiment is the Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, but it works as an independent unit. Now let's go back to the year 1962. On October 21, the Chinese army moved towards the Chushul airstrip located at an air distance of about 214 kilometers from Daulat Beg Oldi. China captured 66 posts including Konkala, Galwan Nala, Hot Springs and Demchok. At that time, India had 2 defense lines near Surjop on the northern side of Pangong Lake. 1/8 Gorkha Rifles was ready to stop the Chinese here. The 1/8 Gorkha Regiment was the first regular unit of the Indian Army to be deployed in the Ladakh region. This unit had reached Chushul in April 1961 itself. Retired Major S.C. Joshi of 1/8 Gorkha Regiment was then posted in Ladakh. He is an eyewitness to each and every incident that happened there. He tells how enormous difficulties were faced by the Indian Army deployed in Ladakh to protect the country.
Any new terrain where we have not used to, the Indian Army has never been used. First of all, the airfield itself is the highest airfield in the world, 14,230 feet if I remember it correctly. And the moment you reach, due to rarefied air, your breathing itself is very difficult, and unless you take it easy, you may have to evacuate it. Then other problem is with the water being hard, you develop duodenal ulcers, and having the chill blades, etc. was or getting blind because the sun is very intense, chill blades, gangrene and all that. So these are the difficulties things.
Even during such difficult circumstances, Indian soldiers were standing firm in Ladakh. From 8:30 in the morning of 21st October, the Chinese army started the attack on Sirijop 1. At 9:30 in the morning, the attack on Sirijop 2 and Yula 1 also began. Major Dhan Singh Thapa with his 20 Gorkha soldiers stood ground at Sirijop 1. But this post was completely destroyed in the attack of more than 300 Chinese soldiers and tanks. Major Dhan Singh Thapa was taken prisoner by China. Several months after the war stopped, Major Thapa was handed over to India by China. Major Dhan Singh Thapa was awarded the highest military honor, Paramveer Chakra, for his bravery. In the evening, China attacked Sirijop 2 for the second time. Sirijop 2 post was also destroyed in this attack with 10 tanks. After the capture of Sirijop, a great danger loomed over Chushul. The Indian army was on the back foot. India already knew that China would try to target the Chushul airstrip first. Therefore, a few days before the war broke out, that is on October 9, Corps Commander Lieutenant General Daulat Singh had visited Chushul and had given orders for reinforcements to increase the defense there. 13 Kumaon Regiment, 9 Dogra Regiment and 3 Mountain Division were deployed in Chushul. China's occupation of Sirijop Valley had increased the tension of the Indian army. After Sirijop, China could easily bring its tank to the Indian borders through the Spanger Gap. The army headquarters had also received the news that Chinese tanks would soon reach Chushul, so it was decided that Indian army tanks were needed in Chushul to counter the Chinese tanks, as it was impossible to stop China without tanks. On one hand, the Indian army in Chushul was trying to stop China, and on the other hand, uneasiness was clearly visible at the Logistics Support Center of the Indian Air Force at Chandigarh Airport, about 358 kilometers from Chushul. At that time, the commanding officer in Chandigarh, Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh, who was famous by the name Butch, did something that surprised not only China but the whole world. The responsibility of taking Indian Army tanks to Chushul was given to Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh. He immediately contacted the Air Force and prepared a plan to send tanks to Chushul. But was it that easy in 1962? Today, India has military transport aircraft like C-17 Globemaster and Chinook, which can easily move tanks and artillery batteries from one place to another. But this was not the case in 1962. At that time, India had only An-12 carrier, but it also did not have the ability to carry tanks. But An-12 not only transported tanks from Chandigarh to Chushul, but also surprised the Chinese army. When the army decided to send tanks to Chushul, the responsibility was entrusted to Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh. When Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh told Air Force officers about his plan to send tanks to Chushul, no one was ready to believe that tanks could be sent there with an An-12 aircraft. But squadron leader Chandan Singh said that he is ready for this task. Chandan Singh had vast experience in transport flights up to Daulat Beg Oldie and Chushul. He was the first to land on Daulat Beg Oldie's airstrip. When Chandan Singh agreed, Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh started working on the plan.
जब भारत सरकार ने तय किया कि लेह को बचाने का इकलौता विकल्प चुशूल में हवाई मार्ग से टैंक पहुंचाना है, तब सबने कहा कि ये नामुमकिन है। लेकिन चंदन सिंह ने कहा, मैं ये विमान पहले उड़ा चुका हूं और इससे वाकिफ हूं, मैं ये कर सकता हूं।
The biggest challenge was to load the tank onto the An-12 aircraft. During the trial, a challenge came in the form of the steep loading ramps of the An-12s. The tank was boarded with great difficulty, but the floor of an aircraft got damaged during tank loading trials. Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh felt that this mission would fail, but he was not the one to give up. He soon found a way out of the problem. It would not be wrong to call it a makeshift arrangement or jugaad. He got local carpenters to construct a wooden covering to prevent damage to the floor of the aircraft and a wooden ramp for tanks to enter the aircraft without slipping. Time was flying by, but in the meanwhile, the Indian Army got some time for this work. In fact, on one side, war was going on, and on the other side, efforts were being made for peace talks. At that time, China had stopped fighting for some time. Taking advantage of this time, Gurbachan Singh accelerated the work. The work was completed on 24th October. For the trial, the tank was mounted on the plane through a wooden ramp. Old tires and sandbags were used as shock absorbers and to prevent the tank from moving. It seemed that soon the tanks would reach the battlefield. But then, a new problem arose. The aircraft could not reach the Chushul airstrip built at an altitude of 14,000 feet with 3 tanks together. The problem was huge, but the Indian Army had to find a solution at any cost. The Air Force insisted that the barrel of the tank should be removed and sent separately, but Gurbachan Singh was not ready for this. Reassembling the tank in the active battlefield was very risky. Army agreed to lower the tank load by removing some non-essential and detachable parts of the tank and unloading some ammunition. When this did not work, only enough fuel was kept in the aircraft so that it could go from Chandigarh to Chushul and return back to Chandigarh. All the preparations were done. A 3-man army team was required for each tank, a man to drive it, another to give him directions, and a supervisor. However, in a last-minute twist, there was a new problem. Preetham Singh, who was one of the drivers of a tank, reported that his wife was in labor and wished to take leave. It was their first baby and his family wanted him to come home. But with this, all the preparations would have been ruined. Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh found a way out for this too. He dispatched a doctor from the army's medical unit to Preetham Singh's home to get the baby delivered. On October 26, An-12 aircraft of the Air Force, led by Squadron Leader Chandan Singh, took off from Chandigarh. By noon, the 20 Lancers Regiment had reached Chushul with 6 AMX-13 tanks and pounder guns. General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, who was then the Chief of Staff of the Indian Army, was also posted in the 20 Lancers Regiment. In a conversation with Desh Ke Rakshak 2 channel, he told how Chandan Singh had made an impossible mission possible.
1962 में मेरी अपनी रेजिमेंट जो कि AMX-13 हल्के टैंक की रेजिमेंट है वहाँ थी। ऐसी खबरें थी कि 1962 में चुशूल के आसपास चीनी टैंकों को देखा गया है और ऐसा सोचा गया कि अगर वो इस तरफ बढ़े तो भारत को भी अपने हल्के टैंकों को इस इलाके में तैनात करना होगा। हम उस वक्त पंजाब के फिरोजपुर में थे और वहां से एक टैंक को एक विमान से लेकर चंडीगढ़ लाया गया और फिर चुशूल भेजा गया। इस हवाई दस्ते को तब ये भी नहीं पता था कि वो विमान उतार पाएंगे या नहीं और इस हवाई दस्ते की अगुवाई कर रहे थे स्क्वाड्रन लीडर चंदन सिंह।
For the first time in the history of the world army, tanks were airlifted to the battlefield at a height of 14,000 feet. At that time, the Gorkha Regiment was responsible for loading and unloading of goods from the aircrafts coming to the Chushul airstrip. Major S.C. Joshi tells how the Indian Army had created history by transporting artillery and tanks from Chandigarh to Chushul.
The threat, it was building up gradually, and in that process, it's the first time in the history, world history, that these 25 powder guns were loaded at Chandigarh and unloaded at Chushul. Also the tank were loaded. I don't know how many people are aware, in the process of loading it in Chandigarh, this the belly of the aircraft got damaged. At such high altitudes, you cannot shut off the engines It just keeps on working, and there was so much of sand and cold. It's very difficult to manage and take out these. So 1HGR has done that. Unloaded gun, unloaded that.
The battlefield, where the temperature was 6 degrees Celsius and which was in close range of enemy's machine guns. But squadron leader Chandan Singh, showing gallantry and determination, had taken the tanks to Chushul. Not only this, a few days after delivering the tanks, Chandan Singh again reached Chushul. He had brought along with him the photograph of the newborn baby of Sawar Pritam Singh. The tanks had reached Chushul, but due to bad weather and lack of oxygen, the health of 3 officers along with the squadron commander deteriorated. They had to be evacuated. Now the command of the squad came in the hands of Captain A.K. Diwan, who was called Chicky in 20 Lancers. 6 degrees Celsius cold, wind blowing at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour, and a height of 14,000 feet amidst severe lack of oxygen were creating huge difficulties for the soldiers of the Indian Army. The weather of Chushul was extreme and harsh, and it was too difficult to live there. Forget about humans, the condition of machines was too bad in such an inclement weather. The vehicles had to be remain started all the time. If they were stopped once, they could not start again. Sometimes bonfires were especially lit to keep the vehicles warm. Low operating pressure and rarefied air created problems in the cooling systems of the tanks, and the freezing temperature affected the efficiency of their engines. The engine of one of the tanks got seized. Now only 5 tanks were left. It was also difficult to start the tanks in the cold, so one tank was always kept on start mode. The 3-week ceasefire had ended and the battle had started once again. The biggest threat was the Spanger Gap. This part between the Magar Hill and Gurung Hill was flat. From here, the Chinese army could reach Chushul with its tanks. About a month later, on 18th November 1962, the war started again. After the capture of Sirijop I, II and Yula, the Chinese army advanced towards Chushul. Moreover, the Chinese army also attacked Rezangla from all the 4 sides. The 13 Kumaon Regiment, also known as Charlie Company, led by Major Shaitan Singh, its 120 soldiers gave a befitting reply to the attack of more than 3,000 Chinese soldiers. In this battle, 114 soldiers of C Company were martyred. Major Shaitan Singh was awarded the Paramveer Chakra for his bravery and sacrifice for the nation. On November 19, the Chinese army started firing to take possession of Gurung Hill, but the already prepared Indian tanks retaliated strongly to the attack. The same day, Chinese tanks had reached Black Hill, but they did not dare to have a tank-to-tank battle with the Indian tanks in front of them. A 3-inch mortar section was also stationed near Magar Hill along with B and D Company of 13 Kumaon Battalion. Major R.V. Jattar was leading it. Fierce fighting continued around the Chushul airstrip for the next 2 days, but the Chinese could not set foot in Chushul. Finally, on 21st November, China declared a unilateral ceasefire, bringing the 2-month-long conflict to an end. On 18 November 2021, when Defence Minister Rajnath Singh dedicated to the country the Rezangla Memorial in Chushul, Brigadier R.V. Jattar, who fought the Battle of Chushul in 1962, was specially invited. If Chushul is a part of India today, then behind it are the efforts put in by the IAF, 20 Lancers and 13 Field Regiment troops. Under the leadership of Captain A.K. Diwan, 20 Lancers did not allow the Chinese soldiers to advance beyond Black Hill. A significant contribution to this was also by Squadron Leader Chandan Singh and Lieutenant Colonel Gurbachan Singh, due to whom these tanks and pounder guns were able to reach Chushul. Squadron Leader Chandan Singh and Captain A.K. Diwan were awarded the Veer Chakra after this battle. India may have lost to China in 1962, but the exemplary courage and determination of Indian soldiers have broken new grounds, which will make us Indians proud forever. Friends, hope you liked this video. Please like and share it, and share your opinion in the comment section. Those who are new to the channel are requested to subscribe to it. In the next video of India-China War series, we will tell you about the Battle of Rezangla. Till then, goodbye. Jai Hind.